Hello there. Welcome to my review of the 1986 film Biggles, Adventures in Time, starring Alex Hyde-White as Jim Ferguson, Neil Dixon as Biggles, Fiona Hutchinson as Debbie Stevens, Peter Cushing as Colonel William Raymond, and Marcus Gilbert as the villain Eric von Stalheim. It was directed by John Howe and written by John Groves and Kent Walwyn. So, to the spoiler-free review. Biggles is not a great movie by any stretch of the imagination, but it is a fun little adventure, what I would call the perfect Sunday afternoon film. One that you might not go out of your way to watch, but if it was on TV on a Sunday afternoon, you'd sit down and watch it and likely enjoy it. It's fairly well made, the special effects are mostly practical, so stand the test of time. The performances are all pretty good, considering the material the actors have to work with. The plot moves at a brisk pace, so it's never dull. The humour generally hits the target. The script just about makes sense, and the aerial flying scenes all look really good. The direction is competent, although nothing particularly special. All in all, it's an inoffensive bit of entertainment that I would consider nothing but entertaining. Now, on to spoilers. The plot of Biggles is that modern ad exec Jim Ferguson is struck by lightning and sent back in time. He rescues a World War I pilot from his downed plane, who turns out to be flying ace James Bigglesworth, hero of the adventure novels from the 1930s. He is then catapulted back and forth in time whenever Biggles is in danger. The Germans have developed a sonic super weapon, and so he and Biggles must work together to destroy it, with the aid of Jim's girlfriend, Deborah, and Biggles' World War I chums. Apparently, the time travel element was added after the success of Back to the Future, and while it doesn't completely gel, it doesn't work too badly in the context of the plot. The logic of the time travel is a little daft, with Cushing's Colonel Raymond explaining that Biggles and Ferguson are time twins, who can both travel to each other's time, and it's left at that. Maybe it would have worked better had Ferguson been a scientist experimenting with time travel, perhaps assisted by Raymond, rather than Raymond just being an old friend of Biggles, who remembers Ferguson from the past, which causes all sorts of paradox problems. Because they are trying to tell two stories, the fish-out-of-water time travel element is largely underused, other than for some humorous scenes where Ferguson gets randomly transported through time when it's not convenient. But it's never really explored beyond that. Ferguson adapts to his situation pretty quickly in order to keep the story moving. I think the biggest problem the film has, plot-wise, is that it's all pretty inconsequential. There's lots of scenes of them escaping from the Germans, and stopping the super weapon is fairly straightforward, although there's nothing to indicate the Germans couldn't have just built another one. I mean, there's a truly horrifying scene where the Germans test the super weapon, but this isn't really explored. Neither is the general wackiness of the premise. If they had gone further in either direction, that might have been interesting. But the tone really doesn't lean into anything, so remains a little flat. There's hints of a relationship between Biggles and a double agent that are never explored, and his friends are never really given too much characterization or that much to do, and Ferguson's relationship with his girlfriend is fairly undeveloped as well. There are several different ways to approach time travel stories like this, and to be honest, this is a fairly original one that I prefer to some of the cliches that you can fall into with these sorts of films. But I think if you wanted to integrate the time travel element more, I would have had the Germans working on a weapon, with Raymond as the unwilling scientist, who has plans to sabotage the weapon, but the villain has captured Biggles and plans to use him as a test subject, just in case Raymond is planning to double-cross them. The weapon, actually being a time machine, that appears to disintegrate Biggles, but actually transports him to the modern day, where he meets his time twin, Ferguson, who he is then able to travel back and forth with. Each time they go back to the 1910s to stop the Germans are advancing their uses of time travel weapons that can cause instant aging or de-aging of people or machines. And when they bounce to the present, there are more and more signs of Germany winning World War One. Make it a sort of buddy comedy between Biggles and Ferguson. Introduce their love interests as coming from the different timelines to their own, and have the climax related to Biggles using a modern aircraft in World War One, as in the original film. However, instead of using a police megaphone on a helicopter to defeat the sonic weapon, have him use his flying skills to avoid the German weapons and cause the villain to crash into the time weapon, reversing all the effects of it, leaving Biggles and Ferguson back in their own times, but without their love interests or each other. The final scenes could then hint towards them potentially meeting again. It would just help to join up all the elements together rather than have the various plot strands remain unconnected. Having said that, it's not a bad film. It just could be better, as it feels like none of it really has any consequence. It's a bit of a fast food film, but not great fast food. Watch it for a bit of fun if it's on TV, but probably don't go out of your way to see it. Thank you. Goodbye.